I'm going to share a little bit more about our farm from a local perspective to provide a local perspective on Indigenous farming practices and the values that accompany them. My family has lived and farmed on our ancestral lands in the Chesapeake Bay region, 30 documented in our oral histories. And despite centuries of colonization and displacement, we have been able to hold on to a small part of our original homeland, which is where we grow our ancestral varieties of corn, beans, squash, tobacco, and various fruit and nut trees. Our focus this year is restoring the seed stock of our ancestral corn variety, which is called Kulim, which is critically endangered. And along with that, beginning to decolonize the diet of our community, which includes both my tribal nation and the intertribal urban native community in Washington, D.C., which is nearby. So as part of the Aramat Project's Indigenous-led place-based research project through Capital Native Nations, this food sovereignty project takes a multifaceted approach. So not only are we producing the ancestral foods for our community, but we're bringing the community into the process of regenerative organic food production and preparation, restoring that relationship to the land that has been violently severed. In Piscataway country, tribal members are also replanting our wild rice beds, using fire ecology to restore the health of our forests. We're fishing invasive species, managing the deer population through hunting, and growing our most sacred medicine, which is tobacco. Our community farm is one small point in a web of Indigenous-led food sovereignty projects across the world. This web has the potential to change everything. And by bridging rural Indigenous tribal nations and urban Native communities, because in the US, over half of the Native American population lives in cities, we open the door to cultural reconnection, education, and market opportunities for these special nutrient-dense foods. The legacy of colonialism on American Indian people in the US is recorded on our land and on our bodies. The rates of obesity, diabetes, and other nutrition-related diseases in our tribal communities are the highest in the country, without exaggeration. And this is the result of the systematic destruction of our traditional food systems by the US government and corporate actors. Returning to the foods our grandparents left for us is a process of healing our bodies and the land. Nutrient-dense and minimally processed foods produced by us and for us offers our communities self-determination, not only for our subsistence, but also for economic development in the agricultural sector for rural and tribal people. And as my colleague Aminata brought up earlier, in these spaces, Indigenous people are held up as a poster child for regenerative farming practices, climate, and our wisdom and science, as Francisco was saying, it's extracted, it's commodified, and it's tokenized. And on the ground, we're the first to fight. We're the last to benefit from any of the resources that trickle down from the few institutional changes that are made resulting from our sacrifices. So our images are used in fundraising materials and the glossy reports, but the grants always go through intermediaries and gatekeepers, whether they're governments, private sector, or NGOs, rather than directly to the producers. And then the technological solutions, the heavy machinery, the poisons, the genetic engineering, and the synthetic inputs, they've become surrogates for the real solutions to feeding the world. These other technologies have become an addiction, an expensive distraction that is very profitable to a small number of people. But here's the thing: farming technologies can make us all rich with beautiful land, clean water, biodiversity, rich in delicious food, physical health, family, and community, rich in a way that doesn't rely on the poverty of others. Agricultural technologies are the future because they were developed over thousands of years by people for whom sustainability is a pragmatic reality, not a moral question. Our grandparents taught us that every decision we make has to consider the consequences for the next 7 generations. Indigenous people will never trade tomorrow for today because we're bound to our land. Whatever happens to her happens to us. It happens to us first, and then it happens to everyone else. So our food system doesn't need more startups or apps or charities. It needs to invest in what's already working. and indigenous people who have fed the world since time immemorial. It is not a natural condition for our people. And we know our Mother Earth is capable of producing enough healthy food for all 8.2 billion people. Hunger and malnutrition is a weapon of warfare. In most cases, it's a weapon of class warfare. And transformative change requires sacrifice and a spiritual awakening, because it's going to piss a lot of powerful people off. And I know that because in my country, I've been arrested 8 times in 8 years for fighting to protect the land and the water. Now I'm focused on protecting it by working the land with my hands. I think jail was easier, but this is a sacrifice that we're proud of as a community. So we need direct funding to indigenous producers and community-driven projects. For example, I have to repair my tractor. For the money spent on my airfare and hotel to come talk here, I could have probably fixed my tractor. So that about sums it all up. Very much. And like to turn the floor over to